there are many ways to enjoy horse racing, and obviously not just to go to the window, buy a ticket, and wait at the finish line and see if your horse comes in. There are many different areas in a racetrack that we want to talk about. Searching out and to better enjoy horse racing itself. You have been obviously on horses. You were a jockey at one time. So was I, Trevor. One little, to give you an idea, I'll give you an idea how good I was. I had never been in a starting gate. And we were breezing horses one day, and the guy said, would you get in with these two other horses? And I, of course, being 12 years old or 13, whatever it was, thought, gee, what a thrill. And never having been in the gate before, we got in, and I was on this horse. The gates opened. And as I looked at my horse going down the track without me, I said, I should be on that horse. It would be a good idea. I felt like the road runner, because the minute the gate opened, the horse was gone, and I was sitting in midair, just like this, going, whoa, boy, they really move out of there, don't they? Take us through a little bit of, since you have been up there too, of what happens when that gate opens. They go from a dead stop to 40 miles an hour right now.
Very, very fast.
I mean, it's probably as fast as a car. So bang, when they go, they go.
The initial part of just the gate opening is much quicker than a car, because those horses spring. Horses don't actually run, they jump, and they actually jump out of that gate, and it's very fast. And as you said, to get in behind that, like
yes,
that,
not being
easy.
On mine when it went. So there are a couple of places that we'd like to maybe direct people to go watch a race, and one of them is, if you have an opportunity, to get down by the gate itself. I mean, you're there on many tracks on 6 furlongs or something like that. You can get pretty close to the gate and have an opportunity to actually see those guys coming out of there.
Sure, and most of the racetracks will have a start right in front of the grandstand. Usually a mile or a mile and 1/16 will start right in front of the grandstand and go down right by the rail and actually feel it right down there, and you'll get a whole different perspective of what it feels like.
And another place is the saddling ring. I think that's probably one of the more colorful places in a racetrack to go down, because there's where you see all the jockeys' silks, and you see the owners and the trainers and everybody explaining tactics. As you know, the trainers at that point explain a lot of tactics to the jockeys.
Sure.
Take your horse, get him out in front, keep him there. The trouble is, of course, that there are about 10 owners telling jockeys to do the same thing. You get your horse out and keep him there in front. And, of course, that's almost impossible. That's where you would see our jockey silks down there. We have a rather unusual silks that we have on our horses. We have no passing on the back of the silks. And unfortunately, we've never been out in front of anybody. Nobody's ever been able to read them, because he's always been in the back with them. What we are looking for, especially in the saddling ring where we first see these animals, and what you can look at a horse and say, I think this horse is at least fit, ready, or whatever today.
Sure. The walking ring, the paddock, to me, it can be summarized in just one word, and that's attitude. It's the attitude of the horse in the ring that counts. Add to that possibly just his overall well-being. Let me give you a little analogy. In a big boxing match, particularly a heavyweight fight, if a heavyweight boxer is coming back from a layoff, the key thing the whole audience is waiting for is when he disrobes. When he takes that robe off and they can see his physical condition. You'll hear all these so-called experts in the crowd, he's carrying too much weight, or gee, isn't he on the muscle? He's ready, he's going to fight a good one tonight. Same thing with the racehorse. When they bring him out of that saddling enclosure and he walks in the paddock, it's that overall impression that you're looking for. Now, that might be easy for me to say and for any horseman who's been around horses for a long time, but to our basic fan out there, he's going to say, well, I don't know what to look for in a racehorse. I know what to look for in a human being. So I would just pick out a couple of salient facts to try to offer them some hints. First of all, I'd start off with the ears. I think the ears are probably one of the most important factors about a horse's attitude. You do not want one ear going this way and the other one there, and they're just kind of flopping around saying, well, do I have to go through the routine again this afternoon? You like them to both be propped forward and to take in what's going on around them. It could be horses are colorblind, but let's say there's some particular person in the crowd who's wearing something that just catches a horse's attention. Maybe somebody shouts something, and you'll see this horse look at them, and he must concentrate his attention on them and kind of watch them go by and then turn around and pick up something else. That, to me, is probably one of the most important things in the ring. What he is doing to the bit, what his mouth is doing to the bit is very important. You don't want him just walking around there with a steel thing through his mouth and he's saying, gee, I wish they'd take this thing out of my mouth. You want him to be chewing on that bit saying, I wish they'd get this thing away so I can really show them what I can do. The hindquarter section is very important, up just by the horse's rump. It's really got to be shining. You should almost be able to comb your hair on his rump, really. It's got to have a glisten to it. If it's not, he's not been well fed, he's not fit, he's not ready to roll this afternoon. The actual glistening on the horse's hindquarters, you're probably just going to have to look at horses and learn the difference between one that doesn't look good and one that does. The best example I could give for anybody out there who doesn't know what to look for is go down and watch the horses in the feature race, particularly if it's a graded race. Look at a grade 1 field very, very hard. Don't worry about betting the race. Look at the horse flesh that you're looking at and get that image in your head, and then go and take that, and when you see that image in a $10,000 or $32,000 claimer, you know this horse is fit and ready to roll this afternoon.
That's your guy, yeah. Now the jockey is put up on, given a leg up onto the horse. Now, what about the response to the horse to the jockey? Is there anything there that we look for? Like
Categorically, very important moment in the paddock, and every fan should really pay attention to this. When that jockey is lifted into the irons, that horse has got to perk up. If he's got his head down and they put the jockey in the irons and he just continues like, I wish this guy would get off my back, he's going nowhere. As soon as that jockey hits the horse's back, he's got to liven up. And he'll actually prance a little and he'll really get into that. But he'll settle down after a while. But he's got to know, jockey on my back, that means action. I'm ready for action. Let's go and get them.
Okay.
He's really got to perk up.
Now he comes to the outrider pony. Is there any reaction there that you look for?
I like to see the thoroughbred nibble on the pony, the outrider pony that takes a hold of him. I think it gives him a calming effect for one. He's not using up all that excess energy that he's got by kicking out and going silly about it. He's actually just chewing into the bit. It's keeping him nice and relaxed, and it's also giving you the impression that you want, that when I'm ready to roll, I'm just conserving my energy right now. Once I get rid of this pony, I'm really going to let loose and show them what I can do. Okay, now they go halfway up the track, they turn around and they come back and they begin to canter or break into a slow gallop. What do you look for there as far as movement? You know, it does depend on the individual horse on that particular instance. All I would say is if you want to wager a horse and he comes out in the post parade and he's looking a little dour, he's looking not very interested, don't not bet him at that stage. Watch him warm up on the backstretch, because they often do perk up down that backstretch. You don't want a real lifeless horse, but if a horse just looks okay and you're sitting on the fence not know whether to bet it or not, watch him warm up on the backstretch. You want his head to be tucked into his chest where the rider's got a nice good hold of him, and you want again that image that he's really full of fire today. He'll probably stick up close to that pony, just that same calming influence that he will give to him, but he's got to project that image of power on the backstretch. You don't want him just to lope along, the rider stands up, he's got that long, loose rein, and this also just kind of clappity down the backstretch, almost keeping pace with the pony. You don't want that. You want his head tucked into his stomach, and that once this guy lets me loose, I'm really going to strut my stuff out there. What about sweating that a horse does on the way to the gate? 99.9% of the time a very bad sign, sweating. There will be horses that do win that sweat up. Again, it pays. If you're really going to get serious about it, you should know each individual horse, because there are horses that will sweat up just about every time they go to the gate, and they will win races, but those are really the exception. Overall, for just the player who's going to go out on the weekend and take a look at a horse, horses that are sweating are no good. One of two things. They're either just not fit enough for that afternoon's race, or otherwise they're just not mentally prepared for that race, and they get themselves into such a tears that they start sweating. It's the same with a person. If a person knows that he really can cope with something, he'll start sweating, he starts getting all agitated, and he can't cope with the situation. Any little thing goes wrong, he's going to burst out in a fury. It's the same with the horse. He's all agitated. He's like, I don't really want to be out here. I'm not in the mental condition to go into that starting gate and run. And you'll see a lot of the times when a horse is sweating badly, he'll lean on the pony. He'll actually lean on him like that. It's almost like, I'm very nervous, I'm scared, I do not want to run this afternoon. So those two things do go together. But sweat, 99.9, take them out. I get that way going to the window just a bit. Really, I break out in sweat. We have often said, and eventually what we're going to do in our handicapping is try to show people that you don't have to go through a racing form if you're going to be wagering on a horse, that you don't have to say, well, he went in 110 and 2 here, and this horse went in 110 and 1, so he should be a second faster. That in reality, the times, though they are a factor, obviously, in racing, because the guy who gets there first is going to have the better time, in a sense, are not all that important. That it is what happens during the race. Sure. How do you see a race set up? See, why I don't go on times, and it's appropriate to any racetrack in the United States, any racetrack in the world, is because the only time you could use times is if that track played identical every single day. If they never added sand to the track, and if a fast track was fast and a slow track was slow. But there are not. You get fast tracks, and then you get the very next day the same track is listed as fast, but it's a slow fast. They might be running decent times, but it is not the same track as it was the day before. So comparing times, to me, that's one of the points I just do not see the logic in it. And secondly, you've got to understand that horses running out there, there's such a big difference between a maiden $32,000 claiming filly against a grade 1 horse. Now, if you're getting those lesser horses in certain areas, it might be a maiden $5,000 claimer. And they are running out there in 46 and 447. That animal is running just about as fast as it can run. That is the best of its ability. But if your grade 1 horse is running in 47, he's going very slowly. Now, very, very few fans really differentiate between the quality of horse. They are just glued on that tote board because they've been taught the stereotype way, and it knocks in 46 and 3, and they say they're going slow. But that poor animal out there is not going slow. She's going as fast as she can possibly go. So my theory, the time, I don't want to use the word irrelevant, that's a little extreme, but the time is of little importance. The energy they are expanding, that is vital. You've got to look at that horse there out there on the lead, not at the teletimer, and look how much energy the particular animal is using out there. If the rider's asking it, let's say by the half-mile pole or going to the quarter pole, and that horse is running to the fastest of its ability at that time, it's expanding as much energy as it can. It can't go any quicker. So who cares what the time is?
Right.
Another horse is cruising along up there, and they knock up 46 and 1, and you'll hear the jockey come back and say, gee, I didn't realize we were going that fast. They weren't going that fast. The track was just playing very fast that day. What the jockey means was, I've ridden thousands of horses, and I know this horse was not exerting itself. He was going well within himself. That's what he's actually saying when he says, I didn't realize we were going that fast. What they mean is we weren't expanding that much energy out there. I think we were going along very easily. So I rather go with how the horse is going rather than how fast it's going.
Okay. We talk a little bit about trouble because you compared it really to driving on the freeway. When you see a race and you see the past performance that a horse has gone from, say, 3 lengths to 9 lengths back to 4 lengths to losing by a head. I mean, this horse has made some drastic moves during this race. You compared it, if you would, to driving a car on a freeway where you go up to a car, he stops, you got to stop, he pulls ahead, now you have to accelerate. That, I assume, is taking an awful lot out of a horse.
You know, it is a direct analogy to the freeways. Anybody who lives in a major city and who's driven the freeways will know what it feels like. If you clammed in, let's take a 4-lane freeway, and you're in one of the middle lanes, you're just going. You're kind of doing what the other guys are doing. If they keep going, you keep going. Now, all of a sudden, you notice they're starting to back up a little. Your first reaction is to take your foot off the pedal. And that would be the equivalent of a rider just easing, not taking up on a horse, just easing back a little bit, where you might see him just like say, uh-oh, something's happening here. And he won't actually pull on the horse's mouth, but instead of just letting him go along relaxed, he'll just tighten up the bit a little bit in anticipation of trouble. The same as when you see it happening on the freeway. Now, suddenly you're on the freeway and you see those red lights hit you, you slam your foot on the brake. For a horse in action, when the jockey sees, uh-oh, I'm getting shut off here, you take a hold and you pull as hard as you can, because if you don't, that horse is going to clip the horse's heels in front of him and you going down. So it's a direct analogy in there. So if a horse has to ease just a little and take up, it'll be the same on the freeway. You taking your foot off the pedal. You're going to lose ground, but your momentum is still there. It's going to cost you a little bit, but not that much. But if you really take up, which is when the jockey takes a hold and jerks on the horse's mouth, it's the equivalent of slamming your brakes on the freeway. And imagine the guy in the right-hand lane doesn't have to stop. He's going to go right on by you. So by the time you've recovered and got out of the lane that you're in and got going again, he's home Jerome already by then. So it's an exact analogy. Freeway driving to horse racing, same thing.
And I would assume that in the next race, even that race, obviously it's going to take its toll on the horse. But I think even doesn't it carry over? I mean, if you were going, say, from 9 lengths back and now you suddenly find an open path and you got to get to the wire, say, in an eighth of a mile, I mean, that is going to take an awful lot out of a horse, so that the next time he comes out, I mean, he still could be feeling the effects of that particular race.
Oh, for sure. He's going to have to almost run a double race if you have to really check bad. And the horse comes back and he's flying and he finishes second, and you think, well, next time is a sure thing to win, but you've got to consider what it actually took out of that horse. If he didn't have to check that badly, he would have won easily and would not have. Again, we get back to that thing of how much energy do you use in a race is more important than how fast you run a race.
What do you look for in a horse's movement, say a smooth movement of, even though he may have lost the last time, he's coming from, say, 8 lengths off to 8 lengths to 6 lengths to 4 lengths, and he finishes fourth by 4 lengths. I mean, it still seems to be a gradual move that doesn't necessarily hurt the horse in a sense for his next race.
I think the same as we said in the paddock, the whole key word is attitude. I believe in a horse, in the actual race, the whole key word there is rhythm. Watch the way the horse does it. You know, a horse can really run his heart out and really exert himself and make up that gradual ground, and he's not going to run any faster next time. If he's 8 lengths back to 4 lengths, but he was running to the best of his ability, he's not going to improve next time. He's going to do the same thing next time. But the horse who perhaps is just preparing for a race, he's getting ready for a race, gets in a little bit of trouble early, and he's taken to the outside, and he's running on fluently, motionlessly down, not motionlessly,
in a fluid movement.
in a fluent movement. Fluently is the word I'm looking for. The horse that is then running fluently down the lane, passing horses without really having to exert himself, and he's closing ground, he's going to be very dangerous next time when he really gets his mind on business and really gets a good, clean trip, and he really puts it in. He's going to be very dangerous. So I think the whole word there that we're looking for is fluency in motion. As we said earlier, the horses don't actually run, they jump, and because of that jumping action, they throw their front legs out, and it is the length of the stride that really counts. When a horse starts getting tired, he'll start shortening his stride. And let's take, nobody really knows for sure, but let's say that a good length of a stride would be in the region of 18 to 20 feet. That's per stride. When they start getting tired, that probably becomes 12 or 13 feet, and that's why they're not covering as much ground. They're using the same amount of energy, but because they're tired, they can't throw those feet anymore, and they start shortening their stride. And once they start shortening their stride, that's when the others start passing them.
Right. So in other words, they aren't really, in a sense, they are just tiring. I mean, they are not, horses aren't passing them. I mean, they are just backing up.
They're backing up, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great. Okay, well, you know, perhaps with a little information like this, we should, they're not open yet, but perhaps we could get down there. Thank you very much. We're going to use this information a little later on when we get to Steve in order to help us make our adjustments here in what you call the homework before we get to the track. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank
Hopefully,
you. I hope the guys out
we'll
there
pick up a
enjoy
buck
the
or two, you know?
Yeah.
Thanks, Trevor.